Alright, so this is a suggestion via Patreon. The name of the video is Geography and Culture Facts That'll Ruin Your Day. This is coming from the channel Geography Geek. Let's check it out.
Welcome to another one of my random geography and culture facts videos. This particular video will feature facts you may find depressing, offensive, unfortunate, or disturbing, but also interesting. Let's get started. The U.S. state of New Hampshire's license plates and a U.S. quarter issued in the year 2000 feature Old Man of the Mountain, a series of 5 cliff ledges on Cannon Mountain in the state of New Hampshire that looked like a jagged profile of a human face. Well, it no longer exists. It collapsed in May of 2003.
We're starting early.
There is a psychological disorder caused by visiting Paris and having extreme disappointment.
Paris syndrome. I understand. I understand the people that suffer through this. Bro, I'm sorry to tell you, Paris is not what you think it is. All right? The people are absolutely rude. All right? The baguettes are hard. All right? Just going to go ahead and point that out. Listen, it's semi-beautiful. Don't get me wrong. You know, the architecture, beautiful to look at, right? But the people are rude enough once they find out you're American for Americans not to go there and give them their money. I'm just going to be honest. Don't waste your time, guys. Like, take this off your bucket list. It is not what you think it is, to the point where they literally have a syndrome.
Because the city was not what they expected. A person experiencing what is being called Paris syndrome may have the following symptoms: a racing heartbeat, excessive sweating, dizziness, anxiety, vomiting, perceptions of being a victim of aggression, and even hallucinations. The condition is commonly viewed as an extreme form of culture shock. Belgrade, the capital of Serbia, is located at the confluence of the Sava and Danube rivers, and at the crossroads of the Pannonian Plain and the Balkan Peninsula. Because of its strategic location, Belgrade has been battled over in 115 different wars and destroyed 44 times. The Hungarian national anthem is about the sadness, despair, lost wars, dead people, and suffering of the Hungarian people because of their sinfulness. Here is an excerpt translated into English.
Go ahead.
The fugitive hid, and towards him the sword reached into his cave. Looking everywhere, he could not find his home in his homeland. Climbs the mountain, descends the valley, sadness and despair his companions. Sea of blood beneath his feet, ocean of flame above. Castle stood, now a heap of stones. Happiness and joy fluttered. Groans of death, weeping, now sound in their place.
Bro, that's the national anthem?
And freedom does not bloom from the blood of the dead.
Right.
Treacherous slavery's tears fall from the burning eyes of the orphans. Hungary also has 2 national holidays celebrating failed revolutions. Finland has been ranked for 6 years in a row as the happiest country in the world.
I can see
but
that.
It's ranked in the top 40 countries in suicide rate. Lesotho has the highest suicide rate in the world. Billings, Montana has the highest rate of depression in the United States at 31% of its 185,000 metro area population.
Bro.
Muammar Gaddafi, the leader of Libya from 1969 to 2011, had a strange obsession with former U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice. He referred to her as an African princess, had a song written for her called Black Flower in the White House, and he also kept a photo album filled with pictures of her. The architect of the Sydney Opera House left midway through construction, wasn't invited to its...
oh, no, never. Matter of fact, hold on. Let's go.
Architect of the Sydney Opera House left midway through construction, wasn't invited to its opening, and never returned to Australia. He died some 40 years later, having never seen his work.
Wow.
Incest is legal in 3 U.S. states, and one of them is...
Let me guess. Hold on. Keep in mind, I have no idea, but I'm just going to be super stereotypical right now. So apologies in advance. Right? Alabama, Mississippi. I'm trying to find places that could potentially be super insular also. Maybe West Virginia.
Not Alabama.
Oh.
They are Rhode Island, New Jersey, and Ohio.
New Jersey? Ohio? Guys, I apologize for all the people I just offended. Wow.
Though, in Ohio, it's only legal when one party is not a parental figure. Denmark and Sweden...
So brother and sister... Oh, that just messed me up, bro.
It's
Let's
only
go.
legal when one party is not a parental figure.
Okay, so the father
Denmark
can't
and
marry the
Sweden
daughter.
hold the record for the most wars fought against each other since the 15th century, with 30.
Right.
Speaking of wars, check out today's sponsor, War Thunder. War Thunder is the most comprehensive
1 second,
vehicle
guys.
combat game ever. 20 cents. Plus, Fact Thunder Now, Premium, and more. Of the 67 people who have served as president of Bolivia, 13 died by tragic means, though only 5 died in office.
Okay.
These deaths included suicide, a helicopter crash, a lynching. One was killed in self-defense when he attacked a military assistant, and of course, assassination. 8 of these assassinations were after leaving office. In 2018,
I'm guessing there's probably a lot of corruption. That's the reason why they're being, wiped off the map, guys.
scientists analyzed a collection of photos and videos taken from 5,000 dives into the Mariana Trench, the deepest trench in the world.
Right.
In these photos, which had been taken over the previous 30 years, they found plastics, nearly 90% of which was single use. And the deepest was a shopping bag at around 36,000 feet, or 11,000 meters.
From what store?
The country of Tuvalu is expected to be completely lost to climate change,
Soon.
so it's looking to become a digital nation.
What's funny, well, not really funny, but Tuvalu very specifically has been looking to purchase land in other nations to kind of just have some place to store their people, in a sense, and their culture. But I do think that their atoll is just going to be, obviously it's going to be going away soon, guys. It's not a laughing matter, obviously, but their nation will never be again. But they are looking for land. I don't know if they have already like secured a piece. But I know they're looking somewhere in Asia, South America. But all right, let's get it.
Tuvalu would retain its maritime boundaries, and this would enable elections to continue to be held and government bodies to continue in their roles. Coconut
Of what,
palms are
though?
not native to the Caribbean. They originate from Southeast Asia and were introduced by European explorers to the Americas in the 16th century. Maybe only depressing to some Americans, but the British may have been willing to give up way more land to the United States at the conclusion of the Revolutionary War than the Americans realized. Diplomats representing both sides at the Treaty of Paris had their own copy of this map. It's been speculated that this red line represented how much territory the British were willing to give up, but the
Oh, yeah, we
Americans
should've
asked
took
for much
that.
less,
Yeah, we should have took that, guys.
not realizing how much they could ask for.
But I mean, that would not have been good for like modern day Canada, because keep this in mind, guys. The place that they were willing to give up, right, this entire region here, is like the only habitable area in Canada, guys.
But I guess some Americans think Canada is a U.S. state anyway.
Kinda, a little bit.
Albinos in Tanzania are at a high risk of being murdered, hacked, and sold in magic potions.
Yeah.
Between the year 2000 and 2015, nearly 80 albino Tanzanians were reported to have been killed, and nearly 200 witch doctors and traditional healers were arrested in connection to the murder. There was a laughing epidemic in 1962 in Tanzania. It started with 3 students at an all-girls school, then spread throughout the school, and then into the wider community. In fact, the school was sued for not containing the epidemic. Ultimately, 14 schools were shut down, and it affected over 1,000 people. Interestingly, the teachers of the schools were not affected. In 2016, a New Zealand citizen
What?
was arrested in Kazakhstan because immigration officials didn't believe New Zealand was a country, but instead a state of Australia. In the room she was interrogated in, there was a world map, but New Zealand was missing. She later stated that she believes she was supposed to bribe immigration officials, but didn't get the hint before the situation escalated. New Zealand denies people residency visas if the person has an illness or disability that New Zealand believes would be a burden on their healthcare system. This also includes having a body mass index over 35 combined with health problems that the government feels is connected to obesity. In 1984, New Zealand Prime Minister Robert Muldoon got drunk and decided to spontaneously call a general election, which he lost. This may not be surprising, given that in 1854, when the colony of New Zealand was granted self-government, The very first law passed by the very first members was enabling the consumption of liquor in Auckland's Parliament buildings. Canada had its own version of Jim Crow laws, which required many black children to attend segregated schools, blood transfusions were separated by race, and they allowed private business owners to refuse services to people from minority ethnic groups. In 1910, the country passed the Immigration Act, which permitted the government to prohibit the entry of immigrants belonging to any race deemed unsuited to the climate or requirements of Canada, or of immigrants of any specified class, occupation, or character, effectively barring virtually all non-whites from immigrating to Canada.
Basically, yeah.
There are as many smokers in China as there are people in the United States. Hot thermal pools have killed more than 20 people in Yellowstone National Park. Bears have killed 8. You would be lucky to find a mammal in Everglades National Park in Florida, because an invasive species to Florida, the Burmese python, ate them all.
Oh.
Estimates on the number of pythons in South Florida range from 30,000 to 300,000. A suitable climate for pythons in the U.S. is expected to expand. There is an island in Florida named Crying Child Island.
Sounds like Florida.
From the year 2000 to 2013, bees and other stinging insects caused 27 deaths in Australia. Snakes also killed 27 people.
Okay.
But out of all of the dangerous animals in Australia, horses killed the most people, at 74. A
What?
linguist studying Mimbabram.
How? Like, what do horses do that can cause harm? Are they like running by and like kicking people? Maybe. I mean, because that's the only thing I can think of that a horse can do to a human.
An Australian Aboriginal language, asked a native speaker some basic nouns to begin his study. This included the word dog. The man replied, dog. The linguist thought that maybe he misunderstood, or years of learning English had tainted his mother tongue. But it turned out that the languages had an almost identical pronunciation, and there is not believed to be any sort of relationship between the two languages. But Mimbabram is now extinct. Over the past century, around 400 languages have gone extinct. That's about one every 3 months. Most linguists estimate that at least 50% of the world's remaining 6,500 languages will be gone by the end of this century. Some put the estimate at as high as 90%.
Yeah, guys, English has just dominated, guys. English, Mandarin, and Spanish. These 3 languages have basically dominated the planet. I can imagine that all of these, like the smaller, less spoken languages are having a hard time. And the elders are going extinct.
Despite its popular use in scams and pop culture, Nigeria hasn't had a monarchy since 1963. In 1965, Malaysia...
What does one have to do with the other? But he's right. But is that what people just think? Whenever they think Nigeria, they think of like illicit activities? Is that really how it happens?
Since 1963. In 1965, Malaysia forced Singapore to be independent against its will. According to Singapore's Prime Minister, this caused him to cry for only the second time in his life, the first being when his mother died.
That's not funny.
And that's all for this video.
That is
Let me know in the comments
funny.
the most depressing or disturbing geography or country facts that you know. Thanks again to War Thunder.
I'm gonna be honest, bro. I don't know many. I mean, well, I guess the only one I kind of knew in advance was France because, bro, I don't like France at all. Maybe it's it's due to me living in Spain for almost a decade, the last decade. Maybe that could be it, where I'm just like, ugh, France, right? It could be a mix of that, because before I lived in Spain, I did go to Paris, and it wasn't, of course, it wasn't what I thought it was, right? But in terms of like me being like an overall history nerd, I love the history of it, right? But other than that, and and all of the the art from other countries, guys. But wait, hold on, let me come back, right? But either way, that is not funny. That is not funny. All right. But that, yeah, guys. So I don't know. It could be a mix of things. I didn't just outright strongly detest it as much as I kind of, have lately, at least. Or well, I wouldn't say I detest it, right? But I just don't think it's a very nice place. I think it's dirty, bro. It reminds me of bro, a Manhattan elevator, bro. If you know what that smells like, Paris. All right. Listen, you guys all have an absolutely amazing day and enjoy your day thoroughly.